Hello and welcome to this design and layout course. My name is Mille, and for the next hour or so, I will take you through how to use the design and layout module in Economic. We'll begin by taking a look at the course agenda. First, I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Mille, as I just said, and I work in the support team here in Economic. This means that I am one of the supporters that you can get in touch with either through the chat or over the phone if you ever need assistance with anything in the program. Well, that was a brief introduction about me, but I won't spend any more time talking about myself. So now I think we should take a closer look at what we will be discussing in this course. This course is about the design and layout module in Economic, which is exactly what we are going to delve into. The first thing we'll explore is what a standard invoice layout looks like. In other words, if we make no modifications to our layout, how will it appear as the default setting? Next, we'll try to add a logo to the invoice to give it a more personal touch. I will demonstrate two methods for adding a logo so that you are familiar with both approaches. Next up, we'll take a look at where we can find our template collections, which are part of the standard setup if you choose that option when you signed up for your agreement. We will navigate to discover where to find them and the buttons to use in the template collections as well. On the template collection, there are two layers, and the first layer is referred to as the letterheads, and the second layer is known as templates. It might not make much sense right now, but I promise it will become much more clear later on. Next, we will extract an English layout and have it added to our agreement so that we can invoice our customers, our international customers, so they of course can read what the invoice states. Once we have our layout sorted and it looks just perfect, we will explore how to manage the layouts. This means understanding how we can control the layouts on customers. So the system, for example, suggests a specific layout for a particular customer or customer group. So that is the plan for the next hour. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'll just jump right into Economic here. And here we go. I have created an economic agreement for my company, the ice cream shop, where I sell some ice cream. I have created a few customers and some products to have some data to work with and to show you today. I have also prepared a draft invoice in advance. So let's just look at that draft invoice for a second, or the ongoing invoice. We go to sales in here, and the first and the top menu to the left is our invoices and current invoices. As you can see here, there's a line. I made an invoice for my customer Lars Andersen. If I go out to the pencil out here on the right and press edit, we get into to the invoice itself. And if I would like to see how the invoice looks, I can click up here on the top right where it says show invoice. And here we can see what the invoice looks like in an PDF format. This is how the invoice will appear when the customer receives it in their email. If we take a closer look, I'll just zoom a bit in for you so you can see everything. If we take a look, we can see that it's pretty basic. It's very basic. It's got all the information that it has to have. It contains all the necessary information, but it's quite plain. So I would like to spice it up a bit and make it more personalized. And this can be done by placing a logo on the invoice. A useful tip when we are working with the design and layout module is to minimize this invoice, minimize this window so it's placed down here on your taskbar. This allows you to quickly open the invoice and view the changes you have made to the layout. I will show you this as we move further into the course, so you get an idea of why it's a useful tip. As mentioned in the beginning, I will go over two ways to add a logo to your invoice. The first method, which I will show you now, is the easiest one. We do this by going up here to the orange cogwheel up here, press all settings. This takes us directly to our master information. Here I'll scroll all the way down to the bottom where I see this button where I have the option to add a logo on the add logo button. When I press the button, my computer stored files opens up, and here I can select the logo that I want to use. So I have a little ice cream cone up here that I want to be my logo, and I'll make sure to put it into the program, and there we go. I can now find the PDF that I have in the taskbar down here, bring it up once again, and then just refresh the page. So just reload, and we can see that my beautiful logo now has been added up here at the top right corner. The system automatically places the logo in the top right corner of the document. I would like my logo to be placed in the center and maybe made a slightly smaller. And to make these changes, we need to go to the Design and Layout module. I'll just minimize invoice once again. To access Design and Layout, we go to the Sales tab and then scroll down a bit, and then we have Design and Layout tab out here to the left. The first thing we see when we look into Design and Layout section is our template collections. The template collections created here are the ones I received as a part of the default setup when I created my agreement. An invoice layout is a construction of two layers, which we refer to as the template and the letterhead. I have an image that illustrates this quite well, so let me return to my slides for a moment here. Good. The letterhead is the first layer that forms the basis for all documents that you can create in Economic, containing the essential information. The letterhead includes all the information that should be consistent across all documents, such as invoices, orders, quotes, etc. This could include details like my company info, customer information, my company name, as well as the entire header and footer. It can be compared to the time when printers were used extensively, where the paper you printed on already had some document details on it before printing any content on the paper. So your letterhead is the underlying letter paper in your layout, where the information displayed here is consistent across all documents, such as your logo and company details. The logo is a part of the letterhead as well, but is not drawn in on this picture. But it's a part of the letterhead. The second layer we call the template, and the template contains all the specific information for the particular document type we are working with. This means the details that should only appear on an invoice or only on a quotation, for example. For instance, there should be payment details on an invoice, but there should not be payment details on a quotation because it's just a quote. When you create a document in Economic, the program takes these two layers as the letterhead and the template for the specific document type and combines them, which we call the template collection. This way, Economic creates the final document and ensures that, for example, an invoice looks different from an order because of the template, but they have the same basis from the letterhead. We now return to Economic here, where we are back in Design and Layout. As I mentioned earlier, I really want to change the placement of my logo. As we just discussed, my logo belongs to my letterhead, the first layer here. I need to access my letterhead to edit my logo on the specific invoice we looked at in the beginning. The first thing I need to consider is which template collection that my invoices uses. To find out, I have to go back to my ongoing invoice. So we go back up here on the tab Invoices, go to my current invoice or my ongoing invoice here, and edit it. Good. We can always determine which layout is being used for this specific invoice by looking right here under the layout field right here, right under the show invoice tab as well. It says that we are using this letter template called DK Standard with bankoplysning. I just need to remember this, and then we go back to Design and Layout down here. In the overview, I find the template collection that I just found on my invoice. It was the DK Standard med bankoplysning 1.8, or the top one here. As mentioned, we need to edit the letterhead, and therefore I need to determine which letterhead is used for this template collection. You can see I have two types of letterheads. We have a customer letterhead and a supplier letterhead. We will look under the customer letterhead because this is used for all documents that are sent to our customers, such as invoices, quotes, orders, and so on. Here I can see that the letterhead called brevskabelon 1,8 is being used. So I remember this that, and then I'll click up here on this button called letterheads at the top here. Now we come to a new overview of all of our letter templates. And here I'll find brevskabelon 1,8, the top one here. And then we go all the way out to the right. Here on the right, you can see a bunch of icons. And these icons are frequently used in design and layout, so you'll quickly become familiar with them. The first icon out here is the pencil. It's the edit, where I have the option to, for example, change the name of my letter template. Yeah, so I'll be more familiar with it if I do not like the standard name that it has. The next button or icon is delete, where I can delete the letter template if I no longer need it. The next icon is a show, where I can see a preview of the letter template. It's essential to be aware that all data here is fictional, so there's no need to panic if you think, "Oh my God, this is not my data." It's supposed to be that way. It's just fictional data. When we press on the show button out here to the right. Next, we have override with the elements from another template. And here I have the option to copy elements from one letter template to this letter template. Be cautious because this action cannot be undone, so you should be sure what you want to do to avoid a lot of manual cleanup work if it was a mistake. The last icon out here to the right is the layout icon, and this is where we need to go to edit the letter template. The first thing we see are these two pieces of paper at the top of the screen. In addition, there are some gray boxes on these two pieces of paper. These gray boxes are called elements, and each box up here corresponds to a line below. This means that if I want to edit my company name, for example, I can click on the top gray box up here because that's where my company name is located on the invoice. It will then bring up a new window where I can make my edits. The exact same window would appear if I were to edit the line below. So you see I have this one called company name. If I press edit out here, I get the exact same window as if I clicked on the top box here. As I mentioned earlier, I want my logo to be in the center and slightly smaller. So to edit the logo, I click on the logo in the box up here. That's the easiest way to go. When we talk about the placement of an element on a document, we use the X and the Y positions, similar to a coordinate system, which you are probably familiar with. To show you properly, let me just bring up the invoice from the taskbar here. There we go. So it's all on the screen here. Good. The X position is the horizontal axis, moving from the left side of the paper to the right side of the paper. This means that the higher the X value I give to an element, the further to the right the element will be placed on the page. With a value of 0 in the X value or in the X position, the element will sit at the right edge of the left side of the paper out here. The Y value is the vertical axis moving from the top of the paper down to the bottom. So the higher the Y value is, or I give to an element, the further down on the paper the element will be placed. I want my little ice cream cone logo further towards the center, so we need a lower X value. So I'll edit the X value over here from 143 down to 90 to get it more towards the left side of the paper and more into the center of the paper. Um, I am adding. I'm not making any changes to the Y value because I like the height of the logo. Additionally, I have the option to adjust the size of the logo. I do this by editing the height and the width fields down here at the bottom. These two fields are dependent on each other, meaning that when I edit, for example, the height, um, the system will automatically adjust the width accordingly to maintain the highest possible quality of the logo. I would like to make my logo a bit smaller, so I'm editing the height to, let's say, 35. So when I change the height to 35, the width changes accordingly. Then I'll say OK, and now we can get the invoice up again here, and we can refresh and see that the logo has been moved and become slightly smaller. Of course, you can do as many changes as you would like, maybe move it a little bit more to the left, a little bit more to the right, or slightly smaller, slightly bigger. It's all up to you. I think my invoice layout already looks much better, but I just noticed that my product numbers are visible down here. I would like to have them removed, and fortunately, we can easily do that. Product numbers are part of the invoice lines, and as we discussed earlier, invoice lines belong to the template since they are specific information for the invoice. Right now, we are still on the letterhead, so we need to switch to the template instead. So we are here at the letterhead, but we need to get over here to the template to edit the invoice lines and remove the product numbers. The easiest way to do this is by clicking out here on the right side on the Design and Layout tab, and then we will go back to the starting point. We are still using the same template collection, so we'll stay here at the top line. We skip the letterheads for now and go all the way out to the right, where we have a bunch of icons once again. First icon is Edit, where we can edit the basic information for the entire template collection. Here I can, for example, change the name up here to make it more recognizable for me. I change the name to the ice cream shop invoice layout, for example. There we go. And press OK. So now I've changed the name, and it may be it may be easier for me to recognize the template collection. Additionally, there are many other settings that can be adjusted in here. And if you have any questions regarding this, please feel free to reach out to the support. The next icon out here to the right is Copy. Here I have the option to make a copy of the entire template collection. The next icon is Delete. Here I can delete the entire template collection if I no longer need to use it. Next, we have Show, where I can preview how the layout looks. Again, using fictional data, so no need to panic if you do not recognize any of this data. It is just the system putting in some fictional data. The last button is Templates. On this page, we can get an overview of all of the different document types. I look at the line for the invoice, number 3 here, since we want to edit the layout for the invoice exclusively and go all the way to the right out here. Then we again have some icons. The first one is Edit, which again contains all the basic information for the template, which I can change if I would like. Next, we have Show, which functions is exactly the same way as described earlier. Then we have this one, the Override with elements from template. It has the same function as I explained on the letterheads. However, we need to be extra cautious when using this function because we are currently working with a specific template for a specific document type. It is essential to consider whether the elements you copy onto, for example, the invoice, will make sense in this context. For instance, For instance, it doesn't make much sense to override with elements from a quote, as it would then display quote on an invoice. If you are unsure whether it makes sure to use this function in your case, please feel free again to reach out to us in the support, and we will gladly advise you to avoid any errors. The last icon is layout, which I click on to edit the template. Now we enter a new window that resembles what we saw on the letterheads. However, there are a few more boxes and lines than what we saw in the letterhead, simply because there are more specific elements than general elements. As mentioned before, I would like to remove the product numbers from my invoice. The product numbers belong to what we in economic call columns. So I need to click on this little box here called columns. In this view, we see an overview of all of the columns that we can add to our layout. I find product number here in the overview is the first one here. And all the way out here to the right under the column show, I can control the display of this specific column with this on and off or this switch button out here to the right. Therefore, I turn off products number right here, then it's turned off. And if I bring up the PDF once again and update it, we can see that the product numbers now are gone. However, we can see there is a bit of a strange gap out here to the right that did not show before. And it looks a little bit unprofessional. And the gap occurs because of these three numbers up here at the top of the screen, which are important to look at when we remove or add columns. I'll just turn on product names once again to show you properly. Here we go. Just turned it on once again, so we are back to the starting point where we were before. And then, there we go. The first number that up here shows us the maximum total width. This means that from here and all the way out to the right side of the paper, there is 190 millimeters. The next number here shows how much of the maximum width, total width that we actually use, or the applied width. It says that we use 175 millimeters, which corresponds to this line that we see here. This also means that the last number out here shows how much width we have available, which is 15 millimeters. And this corresponds to the gap that we see out here on the right, creating the space that we have all around the entire layout. This means that these three numbers are what we strive for when editing columns to achieve the best layout possible. If I turn off product numbers once again, which we can see has 20 millimeters in width or uses up 20 millimeters in width, the applied width will decrease by 20 millimeters, while the available width over here will increase by 20 millimeters, creating that somewhat odd gap that we will see right here. If I just bring this up once again, you can see this odd gap out here, and that is, of course, because the available width has increased by 20 millimeters, making this gap out here bigger. To fill this gap, I need to allocate the extra 20 millimeters to another column that I want to display on my layout. Here, I could add one of the other columns, but that's not what I want to do. I have all the information that I need on my layout at the moment, so I don't want to add another column. I have rather long product names, as you may have noticed, and it will be fine to give this column the extra 20 millimeters I have available. I do this by clicking on Edit on the right of the product names out here, and adding the 20 millimeters up here in this one called width millimeters. It says 60 at the moment, so I'll just add 20, which gives us 80, and then say OK. Now you can see that we have the three numbers up here at the top that we strive for, and the product numbers are not shown anymore. If I bring up the invoice here, we can take a look at this. Just update it. There we go. We can see that the product number has disappeared. The product name has more space, and the line aligns nicely out here to the right, so we don't have this weird gap anymore. I also have some customers abroad that I need to invoice, and they should, of course, be able to read what is written on their invoice. And right now, my invoice is in Danish, but I would really like an English invoice layout as well. Fortunately, we can easily download a standard English layout. The way I do this is by clicking out here on Design and Layout tab on the left, so we go back to the beginning. Then we click on Other Options and then choose a standard template collections. Here we have given you 4 templates to choose from that you can always download to your agreement. There are the top 2 here are in Danish, then we have one in English, and the last one here is in German. I would like to download the English template, so I click out here on the icon called Copy. And then it's just processing for a moment, and I can see that my English template collection is here and ready to use. I'm thinking that we should create a new invoice to see the English invoice properly. I'll go to the invoice tab up here and a new invoice. Here I select a customer and of course some products. Just do this pretty quickly so I won't bore you. There we go, save. Good. Additionally, I need to choose the English layout over here in this field called layout. As you can see right now, we use the layout that we renamed to the ice cream shop invoice layout. If I press show invoice, you can see that it is still in Danish. So we go down here on the layout, press on the name here. On the layout tab out here to the right, I can choose between my template collections, and I'll of course choose the English one, and then OK. After that, I can click again here on Show Invoice, and we can see that it has translated a lot into English here. But what happened to my logo up here, my beautiful ice cream cone? When you download a new template collection, it does not bring the logo with it. Therefore, I would like to show you another way to add a logo to your layout. The first thing we need to do is go back to Design and Layout. I'll just minimize this English invoice. We'll go back to Design and Layout. And then we have to go into Other Options and then choose this one called Image Archive. We need to start by uploading our logo here so that it becomes available for us in the image archive. That is essential for the next part. There are already a lot of images here that you can use if you wish to. For now, I'll just click New Image, give it a little name. Let's call it English logo. Choose file here, and then choose my logo and OK. Good. The logo is now here all the way at the bottom right here, and we are ready to add it to the template collection. As we established earlier, the logo belongs to the letterhead, or the first layer. Therefore, we go back to template collections and note that my English template collection uses this one called Brevskabelon 1,5 Engelsk for the customer letterhead. This I remember, and then I click up here on letterheads. Then we need to find the letterhead in the overview. It's the top one here, available for us. And then we click all the way out here on the right on layout. Now we need to create a new element for my logo. I do this by clicking up here on new element. And here I choose the option for image because the system sees my logo as an image and not as a logo, which maybe seem more natural. But in this case, we uploaded it to the image archive, so the system sees our logo as an image. And then, oh, cool. Good. In the next window, I need to select my logo up here in the image field. In the drop-down menu, I get all my images that from the image archive where my logo is also at the very bottom down here. Additionally, I need to set the position of the logo, which I do again with the X and the Y values. I set X to 120 and Y to 22 to place the logo in the upper right corner. Furthermore, I make the logo slightly larger down here in the field below. So we just type in 30 in height, which will accordingly adjust to the width. It may be a little bit too big, but we will find out. Then we will say, okay, that was fine. And then let's bring up the invoice once again and reload here. Wow, and there you can see that my logo has appeared. As you can see, I have my company name in my logo, and therefore I want to remove the company name up here that the system automatically adds. So let's minimize the invoice once again for a moment. And then we need to find the line down here at the bottom that is labeled company name, which is the line here, number 3. I could click on the delete button out here to the right, but because I don't know if I want to bring the company name back in the future, I'll choose to do something else. Therefore, I instead look at the 2 highlighted boxes next to the line number. These 2 marked boxes represent the first and the last page, as you can see up here. These 2 marked boxes represent the first and the last page, and if we click once on the boxes, the highlighting disappears, as you can tell up here, and it disappears down here as well, meaning that the element, or in this case, the company name, will no longer appear on any of the pages. Clicking once more, we can see that the first box is highlighted, indicating that the company name will only be shown on the first page up here. Clicking again, we can see that the last box is highlighting, meaning that the company name will only be shown on the last page. And clicking one last time, both boxes are highlighted once again, and the company name will be displayed on all pages. Since I want to remove the company name completely, I click once on the boxes again to remove the highlighting on both boxes. If I then bring up my invoice once again, let's just do that from the touch bar once again, and then reload here, we can see that it has removed my company name completely, and now only my logo is on the invoice. This way I can now have 2 invoice logos. You can see here, let me just bring up the Danish one once again. You can see now I already have 2 invoice layouts, each in a different language and using different logos. It allows me to customize my layouts as I see fit and tailor them based on the recipients of the invoice. I could, of course, do this a little bit bigger. We can change it so it becomes bigger. Let's just try to do this. I want it to be a bit more in the center once again. So we'll lower the X position. Let's put it at 90 maybe. And then make it slightly bigger. 45 maybe. Here we go. It could be more to the right maybe. Or the left, sorry. Here we go. It's a bit big, but we can put it a bit up once again. Here we go. And maybe more to the right as well, or the left. Sorry. Yeah. So we can keep doing this until I'm satisfied, but we'll leave it at this for the moment. On our layout, we have the option to use what is called dynamic fields. This can include company information, payment terms, customer names and addresses, and much more. Dynamic fields help you automatically fetch information that already exists in Economic. This also means that dynamic fields saves you a lot of manual typing. I want my English customer to pay their invoice to a different bank than my Danish bank account. Therefore, I need to go into my dynamic fields and override my Danish bank details with my English bank details. That is because the dynamic field for the bank account can only draw on one bank account, namely the one we specified in our master information. So to have my English bank details on my English layout, I have to manually override the dynamic fields. If I just bring up both here once again, let's do that. As you can tell on my Danish invoice here to the left and on my English invoice here to the right, it states the same bank detail, and that is because they both use the same dynamic fields. And all the dynamic fields for the bank information look into my master information and retrieves whatever I have written in my master information when I created my agreement. It is correct that my Danish customers needs to pay to this bank account, but I want my English customers to pay to another account, so I need to override this. To change my bank details, I need to find the element in which the dynamic field containing my bank details is embedded. So we have to go out to our template because as you can tell here on the second layer, that is where my bank details are located. Right now we are at the letterhead, so we need to go out here to design and layout and get into the template instead. We have the English one here, go all the way out to the right, out here to templates, choose the invoice, all the way out on layout. And then we need to once again find the box where this information is usually located. We could go down here in the lines and find whatever line we would like to edit, but it's just easier to use these gray boxes up here at the top. As we just saw, the bank information is located at the bottom of the invoice, meaning that it would probably be this gray box that that it refers to. So we click on the gray box and it opens up this window. Then I go directly into this text element. If I look in the box labeled text over here, we can see a lot of different information, which can be a bit confusing. I get that. It can be a bit confusing. If we scroll down here in the text, we can see something related to our bank. We can see that it says, please transfer amount to our bank, which is the same as it says here on the layout. It also said, please transfer amount to our bank. And then it states all of the bank information. But here in the text, it says it with these dynamic fields. So is this one called, we can see a field called company bank, which is encapsulated in brackets. And this is what we call a dynamic field. So the text encapsulated in brackets is a dynamic field. To get my bank details on my English invoice, I need to override the dynamic fields related to my bank as mentioned. I do this by deleting the dynamic fields for my company bank, registration number, and account number, including the brackets that encapsulates this information. So we'll start with the company bank. We take all of the text as well as the brackets, delete them. We leave these B's that are on both sides. These are also code indicating that the text in between the B's should be stated in bold or should be showed in bold on the layout. Then I type in manually text. I type Nordea because that is my bank. Then we move on to registration number here, and then we have a new dynamic field, which is the company sort code. So we delete all of the text as well as the brackets, and then type in manually the sort code or registration number. Leave the B's as well. Move on to account number here. We have the brackets, company bank account number. Make sure to take the end bracket as well. Delete and type in manually instead. And of course, leave the B's on both sides. Once I have deleted this and manually entered my bank details, we can say OK. And then I can open up the PDF once again. This is the English one. Put it out here to the right, and let's bring up the Danish one as well. So right now they have the same bank details. If I refresh the English one, we can see that the bank details down here at the bottom has changed. So now the two invoices differ from each other and have each their own bank details. Good. My English invoice layout is starting to look very good, and it's almost how I want it. But I've noticed that not all information is translated into English. For example, I can see down here at the bottom that my payment terms here are still in Danish. Løbende måned 30 dage, that is Danish. Payment terms are drawn from Dynamics fields, as we talked about before. They are extracted from the payment term I have chosen directly on the invoice. This means that the invoice will display the name associated with the payment term created in Economic. To have payment terms in English, I need to create new ones. So we do this by clicking out here to the left on payment terms. We say new payment term. I choose the type that I would like, which is to choose net for this one, and then give it an English name or whatever language you would like. We set one for net 14 days as well and press save. To use my new payment term, we go back up here to invoices and edit my English invoice. Just the bottom one here. We do this by clicking here on the left and then choose my new payment term here in the field, net 14 days. Okay. If we now take a look at the invoice here, see måned 30 day, let's update it. And we can see that it has incorporated the new payment term and it is now in English. Additionally, we can see that the units right here are also not translated into English. It is for the same reason as the payment terms, namely that the system automatically fetches it from the unit selected on each invoice line, as you can see here behind. To get the unit in English, I need to create it by clicking on units out here on the left. Then press new unit and then write pieces as well. And then save. I can now go back to the invoice up here where I edit the lines, the invoice lines here, and then choose my new unit in English here. Let me just do that for a moment. And save. If I bring up the invoice once again and update it, you can see that the unit now says pieces instead of styk. I can also see that my product names are not translated into English, and that is because the system retains the name that I originally gave to the product. If I want to change this, I have two options. I can either edit the invoice lines here and manually change the name here in the product name field. I can just change this to English. The second option is to use the language layer function, which is available in the Plus, Smart, and Advanced packages. To use the language layer, I need to click on language layer out here to the left. Here I click on new language layer. Then I need to select a language. I'll choose English. Here we go. And then say save. Next, I need to set the language layer for my products. So I go all the way out here to the last icon called Edit Translation. And then I can click Edit to the right of the products for which I want to create the language layer. Here, if we take the first one, I can enter an English name. So we put in the English name here. I can put in an English description as well if I would like to. So say save and next here. Put in the next one. And of course, the last one as well. And then save. To activate the language layer, I need to it needs to be added to the customers. So I'll click here on customers on the left. I'll find my English customer. out here and press edit. Here under the additional tab, I choose the language layer here in the language field. Of course, my English customer has the English language. And then we press save. When I now create an invoice for this customer and select the product for which I have set a language layer, the invoice line will be displayed in the respective language. So let's try creating a new invoice for my English customer. See new here and choose my English customer. Choose new invoice line. And I choose the product for which I have set a language layer for, of course, now for example, product number 1. You can see this is the original product name is in Danish, but when I choose it now, it translated it to English because the language layer is chosen on the customer. Press save as well. And we can go on, of course, to the other ones as well and see that these are also in English now because of the language layer. So when we say show invoice now, we can see that it all shows here in English. We can choose, of course, choose the English layout here. It makes more sense. There we go. Now we can see that the product names are in English as well. And I do not have to correct it manually, which is good. When working with different layouts, such as having both Danish and English layout, it is important to know how to control these in Economic. There are 2 ways to manage layouts in Economic. It's directly on individual customers or through customer groups. To control layouts for individual customers, I can click out here on customers. Here I see a list of all of my customers. Suppose I want my customer Lars Andersen here to use my Danish layout. I find the customer in the list out here. Click on the pencil icon to edit and then navigate to additional. Here under the additional tab, I find the field labeled layout, which determines which layout the customer uses. And by clicking in this field, I can choose from all of my layouts. In this case, I choose the Danish layout, the one we call the ice cream shop invoice layout, and then click save. Similarly, I do the same for my English customer, which is Matt, or maybe I'll just wait with that actually. But if I don't want to do this for each individual customer, if you have a lot of customers, this can be a very long process and it's not very automatically. So I can manage layouts through customer groups instead. So let's go to customer groups. Here I see a list of all of the customer groups that I have created. For instance, I want my international customers to use the English layout. So to do this, I click on the edit pencil out here to the right. And on the layout, I choose the English one here and press save. It's essential to note that when working with layout control, the layout set directly on the individual customers always overrides what is set on the customer group, unless the layout called customer group is selected on the customer. In other words, if a Danish customer has a different layout selected than the Danish layout, but the Danish customer groups to which the customer belongs has chosen the Danish layout, the layout chosen directly on the customer's takes precedence. So, for example, if I go into here to Matt and edit on additional, you can see right now the layout is set to look at whatever the customer group is set up to, and of course the customer group is set up to the English layout. But if for some reason Matt wants his invoice in Danish, or he wants to use this layout called the ice cream shop invoice layout, I can override whatever is chosen on the customer group by choosing the layout directly on the individual customer. And with that, we have actually covered all of the points of the agenda, and this concludes this course. If you have any questions about what we have covered in this course, feel free to reach out to the support through email, chat, or the phone, as displayed here on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.